Good morning student. Welcome to your software engineering class. In the previous session, I have discussed about requirement analysis and specification phase. In that phase, the software analyst or system analyst gather the information from the customer side and remove all the contradiction, inconsistency and anomalies from the customer requirement and write in a proper manner, that is SRS document. So in this session I will discuss about software requirement specification, means SRS document. After completion of this video class, you will able to know about SRS, then who are the user of SRS document and contents of SRS document. So let's start. Content of this video: software requirement specification, user of SRS document, black box specification, contents of the SRS document. In this I will discuss about functional requirement, non-functional requirement and goal of implementation. Software requirement specification. Main aim of requirement specification: systematically organize the requirement arrived during requirement analysis, document requirement properly. Means the main aim of requirement specification is to gather the information. After gathering the information from customer and removing the inconsistency, anomalies, etc., then the software analyst write down in a organized manner, in a planned manner. They document it properly and the document is known as software requirement specification. Requirement document is a reference document. SRS document is a contract between the development team and the customer. Once the SRS document is approved by the customer, any subsequent controversy are settled by referencing the SRS document. Means after approval of SRS document, when the software analyst or system analyst write down the requirement in a document, in SRS document, the document is reviewed by the customer and the project member or project manager. Then the customer approve the SRS document, and this SRS document is act as a contract between the development team and the customer. If any time there is any controversy or there is any doubt, then they refer to the SRS document. Once customer agree to the SRS document, development team start to develop the product according to the requirement recorded in the SRS document. The final product will be acceptable to the customer as long as it satisfies all the requirement recorded in the SRS document. Means after the approval of SRS document, then the developer team, the engineer, start developing the product according to the SRS document. And after completion of this product, the test taken place and the product will be acceptable if the product satisfy all the requirement that recorded in the SRS document. Means the engineer has to be develop the product as specified in the SRS document. The next is who uses the SRS document. Okay, so some of important category of user of the SRS document and their needs are as follows. So first is user, customer and marketing personnel. The goal of this set of audience is to ensure that the system as described in the SRS document, means user, customer and marketing personnel check the software by referencing the SRS document. As the requirement written in the SRS document, they check the software. The next user is the software developer. Means the software team, the project team, develop the project by refer to the SRS to make sure that they develop exactly what is required by the customer. Okay, while developing they refer to the SRS because they want to develop as the customer requirement. The next user is test engineers. Their goal is to ensure that the requirements are understandable from a functionality point of view so that they can test the software and validate its working. Means the next user is test engineers. The test engineer also refer to SRS document to correctly understand the function of the project of the product and validate the product according to the needs of the customer that written in the SRS document. Then user documentation writer means their goals in reading the SRS document is to ensure that they understand the document well enough to be able to write user manual. Means the developer who writes the user manual also refer to the SRS document. Then project manager. Project manager, they want to ensure that they can estimate the cost of the project easily by referring to the SRS document and that it contains all information required to plan the project. Means the project planning is done by project manager, the cost estimation is done by the project manager. So the project manager also refer to the SRS document to plan the project, to estimate the cost. Then maintenance engineer. The SRS document help the maintenance engineer to understand the functionality of the system. A clear knowledge of the functionalities can help them to be understand and to design and code. Means the maintenance engineers also refer to the SRS to clearly understand the functionality required by the product to design and coding it. Okay, so these are the user of SRS document. Mainly this set of user use SRS document as the reference document. Then the SRS document also known as black box specification. The SRS document is known as black box specification. The system is considered as a black box whose internal details are not known. Only it visible the external, that is input output behavior is documented. Means in SRS document there is the functionality of a function is, the processing of a function is not written. It only written the input and the output, the external behavior of the software. Means software accept this data and it will produce this data, and how it is produced, means how the processing is done, that is not written in SRS document. The SRS document only show the external criteria, means it shows the input, what will be the input and what are the output from the function. So it is known as the black box specification, because in a black box specification the given input data is there and output is there, but the internal behavior, the internal processing is not written in the SRS document. So it is known as black box specification. Then content of SRS document. SRS document normally contain three important parts: functional requirement, non-functional requirement and goal of implementation. Means in SRS document, they written what are the different function of the project, different function of the project, that are functional requirement and some non-functional requirement, and how to implement it, goal of implementation. These are the contents of SRS document. Then functional requirement. Functional requirement describe a set of high level requirement. Each high level requirement take in some data from the user and output some data to the user. Each high level requirement might consist of a set of identifiable functions. Means in functional requirement, in a high level requirement, a high level requirement means they specify the input, what are the input taken from the user and what will be the output of the function. So this is the functional requirement, what are the different function and what they take as an input and what they will show after the processing, what are the output to the user. Okay, this is functional requirement that describe in SRS document. Functional requirement. For each high level requirement, every function is described in terms of the each and every function is described in form of input data set, output data set, processing required to obtain the output data set from the input data set. Means in the functional requirement, it is written the set of input data and what will be the output data. After processing, what will be the output data. This is the high level functional requirement. So this is an example of functional requirement. It is desirable to consider every system performing a set of function Fi. Each function Fi considered as transferring a set of input data to corresponding output data. Means the function, if the function is Fi, each function described in SRS document has some input data and some output data. After processing, what will be the output data. So this is an example of functional requirement for a library software development system. For a library system, search book is a function. So in search book, the input is author name and the output is detail of author's book and the location of this book in the library. Means it take the input as author's name and display all the books written by the author available in the library. It shows the available books that written by the authors and the location of the books. Means this is the output. In SRS document, it write down the input is author name and output, that means the book details is the output. Okay, this is the functional requirement. Then non-functional requirement, characteristic of the system which cannot be expressed as function. When the characteristic that cannot express by the function is known as non-functional requirement, like maintainability, portability, usability. These are some non-functional requirement. Non-functional requirement include reliability issue, performance issue, human computer interface issue, interface with other external system, security, maintainability. These are the things we have to consider in non-functional requirement. Okay, in non-functional requirement, the SRS document write the characteristic of the function which cannot be expressed as a function, and that is known as non-functional requirement. Then goal of implementation. The goal of implementation part documents some general suggestion regarding development. Describe things that the system should or should not be do. Means what the system should do and what to not do. The goal of implementation section might document issues such as revision to the system functionality that may be required in the future, new devices to be supported in the future, reusability issue, etc. Means in goal of implementation, it might write down all the further enhancement characteristic, means what can be developed in future, that can be described in goal of implementation. So in SRS document there are three contents: functional, what are the different functional function required to be developed in the project, and what are the some non-functional characteristic, what are non-functional issues, and what are the goal of implementation. These three things are written in SRS document. Okay. So this is all about the SRS document. Thank you.